Welcome to Speak and Grow Learn English Now. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more lessons on improving your English skills. Today, Mark and I will be discussing how to express likes, dislikes, and preferences in English.
That's right, Jessica. These are some of the most common things we talk about in everyday conversations. Whether you're making friends, sharing your interests, or even ordering food at a restaurant, knowing how to express your likes and dislikes is super useful.
Absolutely. Understanding how to talk about likes and dislikes helps in making new friends, sharing interests, and even making decisions. Before we dive into our discussion, let's give our listeners a few quick examples. If you love something, you can say, I absolutely love traveling, or I really enjoy playing the piano. If you dislike something, you might say, I'm not a fan of waking up early, or I really don't like spicy food. And if you want to express a preference, you could say, I'd rather watch a movie than read a book, or I'd prefer tea over coffee.
Those are great examples, Jessica, and these phrases are super helpful in everyday conversations. Let's get started. So, Jessica, what's something you really like doing in your free time?
Oh, that's easy. I absolutely love hiking. There's nothing better than being out in nature and exploring new trails. It gives me a sense of adventure and keeps me active. What about you?
Hiking sounds amazing. For me, I really enjoy reading. There's just something relaxing about diving into a good book, especially on a rainy day. It helps me escape into different worlds and learn new things at the same time.
That's a classic choice. Reading can be so enriching. But here's a question. Is there something you dislike doing?
Oh, definitely. I'm not a big fan of cooking. It's not that I'm terrible at it, but I just don't enjoy spending so much time in the kitchen. I find it repetitive, and I'd rather do something else with my time. What about you?
Funny you mentioned that. I actually quite like cooking. It's kind of like therapy for me. I enjoy trying out new recipes and experimenting with flavors. But something I dislike? I'd have to say I'm not too keen on public speaking. It always makes me nervous. No matter how much I prepare, I still get that uneasy feeling before speaking in front of a big group.
I get that. Public speaking can be intimidating. I used to struggle with it too, but with practice, I've gained more confidence. Now let's move on to preferences. If you had to choose, would you rather go out for dinner or stay home and cook?
That's a tough one, but I'd prefer to stay home and cook, especially if it's for a small group of friends. I like the idea of preparing a meal together and enjoying a cozy evening at home. What about you?
I'd rather go out. I like trying different cuisines and discovering new restaurants. It feels like an adventure every time. Plus, I enjoy the social experience of eating out and not having to worry about cleaning up afterward.
Good point. Now, let's give our listeners some useful phrases they can use to express their likes and dislikes. I'll start. To talk about something you really like, you can say, I absolutely love, or I'm really into. For example, I'm really into hiking. Another way to express enthusiasm is, I can't get enough of, or I'm passionate about.
Great examples, Jessica. And for dislikes, you can use phrases like, I'm not a fan of, or I can't stand. For instance, I'm not a fan of cooking, or I can't stand crowded places. You can also say, I'd rather not, or it's not my thing.
Exactly. And when expressing preferences, you can say, I'd rather, or I'd prefer. Like, I'd rather stay home and cook, or I'd prefer to read a book than watch TV. Another way to express preference is, I tend to prefer, or I'd much rather.
Here's a fun exercise for our listeners. Think of something you like, something you dislike, and a preference you have. Try saying it out loud using the phrases we just mentioned. For example, I absolutely love swimming, but I can't stand cold weather. I'd rather go on vacation to a warm place than a cold one.
That's a great idea, Mark. And if you want to practice even more, try writing down a few sentences about yourself using these phrases. The more you use them, the more natural they'll feel in conversation.
Yes. And another way to practice is by listening to conversations and paying attention to how people express their opinions. You can also ask friends questions like, "What's something you really enjoy doing?" Or, "Is there something you'd rather avoid?"
Exactly. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So, listeners, don't be afraid to try these phrases out in your daily conversations. And remember, making mistakes is part of learning. Just keep practicing, and soon it will feel natural.
Try keeping a journal where you write down your likes, dislikes, and preferences using these phrases. It's a simple but effective way to improve your confidence and fluency.
Thanks for joining me today, Mark. This was a fun conversation. Hopefully, our listeners found this helpful and can now use these phrases in their daily conversations.
Likewise, Jessica. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to Speak and Grow Learn English Now on YouTube for more lessons and practice tips. Keep practicing, everyone. See you next time.